Thanks for your support as a channel member, Pulse Potato! It's all kicked off in Abu Dhabi ahead of the final Formula One race of the season, and the cars haven't even hit the track yet. Hello folks, it's been a dramatic day in the world of Formula One, hasn't it? George Russell and Max Verstappen have had a bit of a war of words. F1's lacked a true rivalry since the acrimonious 2021 season between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, but now a new rivalry is blossoming, Verstappen versus Russell. So how did we get here? Well, it all stems from last weekend's qualifying session in Qatar, where George Russell came across Max Verstappen going slowly, kind of on the racing line at the triple right-hander, but both drivers weren't on a bona fide qualifying lap. They were both in cool-down preparation sequences. Russell coming across the Red Bull at a considerable speed, and the stewards agreed and penalised Verstappen with a one-place grid penalty for driving unnecessarily slowly. After that, Verstappen accused Russell of trying to screw him over, saying he'd never seen someone try to do that so hard to another driver. And now Russell has had his say in return, saying that Verstappen told him after that stewards meeting he was going to go out of his way to crash him off the track if they were racing each other. Verstappen eventually got the lead at turn 1 after Russell started on pole position and went on to win the race. But the war of words has raged throughout the day, getting social media clicks all over the place. And personally, I think this is great for Formula One because it puts F1 on the back pages, it puts F1 in the spotlight on social media, it will get clicks all over the place, it will get people talking, and it gives people a reason to tune in to the final round of the season. And also there is the Constructors' Championship to decide between McLaren and Ferrari, neither of whom have won a title for absolutely ages, so there is also that. But this could be even juicier. So let's see what George Russell has had to say. He said he's going to purposefully go out of my way to crash into me and put my effing head in the wall. That's pretty aggressive stuff from the world champion, and honestly, that's yeah, that's kind of worrying that someone of Verstappen's ability feels he has to resort to saying things like that. That's, you know, that's like saying, oh, in the playground at school, if you do this, I'm going to punch you in the face. No one likes that. That's not particularly kind. No one really appreciates threats of violence. So yeah, that's not particularly looking good on Verstappen's part, but the Dutchman has stood by his comments. He's spoken in the FIA press conference today. He said that he would do the same or even more if this were to happen again. So yeah, he's standing by his comments. Verstappen is nothing if he's not honest about who he is and what he stands for, but sometimes it does get him into hot water. And you know, whichever way you look at this, like I said, this is great for Formula One because from whichever side you're on, there is a hero, there is a villain. Every good story needs a good villain and a good hero. Someone who's going to go up against the villain, a villain who's almost prepared to do anything to get their way. And if you're a Verstappen fan, George is making a fuss out of nothing. He's got Verstappen a penalty for no reason, so he's the bad guy. That's fine. If you're not a Verstappen fan, Verstappen is making physical threats, he's being all sorts of other things. You know, it's just not very popular, is it? So there you go, there's your enemy in that camp. But you know, this is great for Formula One because it gets people talking and it puts real needle between the drivers. George Russell said to the TV cameras that, you know, when they go and race on track, it's never personal. Obviously, they all want to beat each other because they want the points, they want to win. That's competitive spirit, but it's never been personal. And he feels that Max Verstappen has now made this personal. And he also called Verstappen out for saying that he had tried to screw Verstappen over in the steward's office, saying that Verstappen has and did do exactly the same before, and he would do it again. Because if you remember back to during the race, there was that wing mirror on the track, causing all sorts of chaos just by laying on the ground, and Lando Norris failed to lift for the double yellow flags in the middle of the straight, and Verstappen was straight onto his team to ask them to check, and that is how Lando Norris ended up getting slapped with a 10-second stop and go penalty, and Verstappen had a clear route to victory unchallenged. Would Norris have been able to beat Verstappen to the win in Qatar? Perhaps not, but it wouldn't have been as easy for the Dutchman. Now, both drivers say that they've lost respect for one another, so if they do find themselves against each other on track, it's going to be very interesting because neither driver really has anything to play for in the World Championship stakes. They don't have a Constructors' Championship to try and sell for their teams either. Verstappen's already won the World Championship. Russell is probably just going to finish ahead of his teammate Lewis Hamilton anyway, so all bets are off. Who even knows what's going to happen when these two meet? If they're in the braking zone, who is going to yield? Personally, I don't think either of them. I think Verstappen will want to make a point that he's not going to let George Russell through. Russell's going to want to make a point that Verstappen's not going to bully him off track, and that's something else he brought up, that Verstappen has been enabled to bully other people. Strong words from the Kings Lynn-born driver, and you know, there is an element of Verstappen being enabled by the Red Bull team to almost act in a certain way. They don't always pull him up for certain things. Sometimes they pander to his tantrums at times, and they have in the past. Although in Hungary this year, GP, his race engineer, refused to engage with some of Verstappen's whinging on the radio. And let's be honest, all the drivers whinge on the radio because that's what they do. They're trying to gain a competitive advantage to allow themselves to have more opportunities. And this storm of words has not been limited to the drivers either. Toto Wolff, the Mercedes boss, has also weighed in. He has called out his opposite number at Red Bull, Christian Horner. Obviously these two, the best of buddies. Not, because if you remember back to 2021, they were slanging matches all over the place in the news articles and on the back pages throughout that season, and it's back again. He has slammed Christian Horner for commenting on the state of mind of George Russell. Christian Horner said that Russell was hysterical after the Qatar qualifying session, and Red Bull's boss has now been accused of weak leadership, being accused of not being able to control Verstappen by Toto Wolff. And look, I think there's an element to that, but I don't think it's simply because Horner's bad at his job. He wouldn't be such a long-serving team principal if he wasn't able to control and sort of facilitate and direct that team in the right way. They've won a lot of titles and a lot of races with him at the helm. I think it's more Verstappen is more directed by Helmut Marko and by his dad Jos Verstappen and by his other sort of management team members. So I think there's a sort of bigger picture at play there at Red Bull, because if you remember back to the start of the season, Verstappen was threatening to leave if something happened to Helmut Marko, so it was almost a Marko stays or Horner goes sort of position. They both stayed, so Verstappen's still there. But ironically, Toto Wolff has been after Max Verstappen, and wouldn't it be ironic that, you know, George Russell loses his Mercedes seat to Max Verstappen for 2026 or 2027, and George Russell ends up at Red Bull. But yeah, this is possibly the next big rivalry in Formula One. It's been very interesting to watch it all play out on social media today, and the quotes coming from the paddocks. So yeah, I mean, how do you guys see this playing out? Who will lift? Will either of them lift? Will they crash into each other on Sunday at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix? So yeah, what do you think of all of this? Who's in the right? Who's in the wrong? But overall, I think it's fantastic for Formula One. Thanks for watching. You're the best fans. It's bye for now.